Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about specifically psychological optimization and mental performance enhancement. This is actually coming from an article that I wrote. It's actually called How to Actually Practice Self-Love 4 Steps. And you're like, self-love, Constantine, what? Psychological optimization, mental performance enhancement, how do the two actually fit together? Well, stick around and I'm going to tell you exactly how they fit together because self-love is really practical. It's not just spiritual. It's like a practical thing that you do. So, and it also ties into what you're doing with your life because think about it like this. You don't want to be the person who is demonstrating or trying to show him or herself self-love, but your life is falling apart. Because if your life is falling apart, is that really self-love? Like, are you actually loving yourself if you're allowing your life to be destroyed or you're allowing your life to degenerate slowly? You're not. And then simultaneously, you can do all of the right things, but not recognize yourself in any capacity. And you're always miserable, you're always moody, your relationships are messed up and you're wondering why. So you want to make sure that you're marrying those two things. So basically, it's called psychological optimization and mental performance enhancement through functional self-love. So let's go through the steps. And if you like this video, check out the article and you can see it in written form. So and I'm going to link that in my description as well, so you can actually sign up for my newsletter if you're interested. So step one, there's 4 steps here, right? So 4 steps. Step one, stop consuming. You're not going to want to hear this right now. You're not ready for this. Stop consuming all content of every kind for 1 week. So you're eliminating all consumption of social media, of podcasts, videos, movies, shows, articles, blogs, all that stuff. Scrolling for 7 days, none of it. So why? Let's talk about why. I'm going to drag it over here so I don't keep looking over this at this screen. Because it's impossible to discover your own true voice. Like, who's actually talking in your head? Is it me? Is it somebody else? Is it some podcaster? Is it some person's idea that you keep consuming over and over and over again, or a set of ideas? So in order to discover your own true voice in a world of never-ending voices and faces talking at you, and with all of the external information bouncing around in your head, you won't know if your thoughts, quote unquote. So it's like, oh, these are my thoughts. Like, how do you know that? How do you know that your thoughts are actually your thoughts? So you won't know if your thoughts, desires, beliefs, perspectives are indeed yours or someone else's. So then I write here, what's the probability that you're going to hear your own voice in a cacophony of other voices in your head? Very likely it's close to zero. Because if you're always watching shorts and watching TikTok and scrolling on X and looking at Instagram videos, reels, watching a bunch of YouTube videos and different topics, it's too much, man. So the easiest way to wean off that addiction is to replace it with a healthy behavior. So if it's going to be hard for you to just cut everything cold turkey, and for a lot of people it is, what you want to do in the times where you're oriented towards, okay, or you have the impulse towards like watching a video or something like that, the best thing that you want to do is replace that behavior with something productive. And the only thing that I could think of, really, that's something that will sustain your focus over a long period of time is reading a book, right? Reading a book that's long, that can actually sustain your focus, keep you interested for at least 1 week. So it can't be a book that you're going to finish in like a day. Pick something that's fairly long, that's interesting, that's going to captivate your focus. It's going to captivate you for at least 1 week, because what you're doing there is you're kind of following a narrative. And again, it could be nonfiction, it could be fiction, doesn't really matter. But what you're doing is you're kind of following the narrative of the actual theme of the book, and or because it also has chapters, and maybe you're reading a book like Testament of Hope by Martin Luther King. That's a very long book. I think it's like 800 pages, and it's basically a collection of Martin Luther King speeches. So the point here is that you're picking a book that's going to, number one, be long enough that you're going to be able to read over at least 1 week, if not longer. And number two, it's going to be interesting for you. So the last thing that you want to do is replace one vice or one addiction for another one. or one problem for another problem, or one piece of 7-second content with another piece of 7-second content, right? So pick the one thing, the one book that's going to sustain your focus. And then every time you have the urge to do that, then you open the book. For me, it's the Bible. Okay, that's the book. It's the Bible. I also have other books, right, centered around like religion and self-development and stuff like that. But that's a great book because it's a very long narrative structure, and there's like different pieces, different chapters. It tells a story. It's great. So you find your book, right? So step one, stop consuming all content of every kind for 1 week, including this channel. You're like, Constantine, how could you possibly say that? You're on YouTube. Don't you want people to watch your videos? Of course, because all of my attention is directed towards improving your life, making your life better, and imparting the lessons that I've learned, the experience that I've had to make your life better in many different domains, not just in one domain. Because I'm going to talk about specifically professional domain, sales domain of like confidence. And I just had a comment recently talking about asking me if I could cover confidence or something like that. So many different things. Fitness, that's another one. I've been working out since I was 15 years old, like at the gym. I'm 35, man. That's 20 years. So point being is that there's a lot, but it's all kind of like found within you. And that's kind of like my orientation to help you understand that everything that you can do, everything that you want to do, you can do. You just have to be able to access different parts of your brain to find the tools, develop those tools, and then use them, right? To create the life that you want. So step number one, stop consuming all content. Because listen, you're not going to be able to stop consuming content forever, because you also want to limit yourself to like other people's opinions. Like step one, stop consuming all content of every kind for a week includes talking to other people about their opinions about 10 different things. Doesn't matter, right? Forget about other people's opinions. Forget about videos and movies and shows and articles and blogs and podcasts and social media. Forget all of it. You want to be able to be as silent as possible, as internally silent as possible. That's the only way you're actually going to discover your voice. And then once you discover your voice, then you can reintroduce the content, right? You can reintroduce the content, but now you're going to be reintroducing the content that's kind of like more directed towards specifically who you are and what you want, what your goals are, what your mission is, what kind of journey you want to walk. So you're going to be more pointed, right? You're going to be more oriented towards specifically what kind of content that you want to consume. So that's the step number one. Step number two, specify your daily tasks and their time allotment, right? So now your mind is clear, and your mind is going to start to fill up with like problems that you're seeing in your life to be solved or addressed, goals perhaps at a small scale to be set. So you're going to start to look around, you're going to start to think, okay, so this is jumping out at me. I know I need to do this thing. I'm neglecting this thing here. So things are going to start appearing as opportunities for you to basically, you could say problems to solve or opportunities, right? They're basically opportunities. So what you want to do is write down everything that comes to mind and ask yourself, okay, what is calling for my attention right now? What's presenting itself to me as an opportunity? How can I help? How can I use this thing that's arising in my consciousness to help my life and then potentially help somebody else's life? So the only way to improve your life is to be clear specifically with quote unquote what's wrong and what can I do. So when I say what's wrong, I don't mean like there's anything wrong per se, but it's almost like what needs to be addressed. Maybe that would be like a more accurate statement. Like what needs to be addressed, what needs my attention, and what can I do about it, right? And when I say what's wrong, I mean like maybe there is something wrong. Maybe you broke your phone. That's wrong. You know what I mean? Now, you don't want to make anything wrong internally, but you get my point, right? Maybe what's wrong is you don't have a job, right? So you're not making any money, right? That's wrong. That needs to be fixed, right? Because that part of life is kind of broken, so you got to fix it. That's okay. That's normal. Like there are tons of people that were jobless. I was jobless once. I was sleeping in my car and living in my car, right before I had this ascension that I talked about in previous videos. So don't worry about it. It's not really. Don't get all worked up about what's wrong. But the thing is, just ask yourself, okay, what needs to be solved, what needs to be addressed, and how can I do that? So, how you must describe in detail the problem and the goal. So you're describing in detail the problem, whatever the problem is or whatever needs to be addressed, and what is the goal, right? So you're describing those two things in detail. And then what you're doing, because you want to know exactly where you are and where you want to go with where you are currently. We're not talking about like a vision for your life. We're talking about in relationship to that issue, right? What's the goal? Maybe the goal is just like, listen, the problem is that I don't have a job for XYZ reason. And the goal is for me to get some job, right? But still write it down. And there are some problems that are going to require you to be more granular. So get more granular, get more specific, get more detailed with those. But you want to describe the problem, describe the goal, then describe the sequence of activities required for you to solve these problems and achieve these goals. So describe the problem in detail, describe the goal, and then describe all the sequence of activities for you to actually get there. Step number 3, lay out your process and execute the process. Execute the process, okay? So the process is defined by your series of steps that take you from here to there. It's a sequence of what you do, right? So what does this mean? By the way, as far as like the sequence of activities, the process itself is like the granular part of that sequence, right? So the how is in the previous step, step 2. So specify your daily tasks and their time allotment. So you have to know specifically how much time you're spending on each task. And the reason why you want to know that is you don't want to tell yourself that you're going to do something and it takes you like 10 times longer than it should have. Like if you take too long in the shower in the morning, set a timer, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, take a shower. Same with meditation. Same with journaling. If you're going to sit there for an hour trying to think of something to write, set a timer for 10 minutes. Just be like, you know what, I'm just going to write. Same with the memo, set a timer, right? Same with your tasks for work, business, anything that you're doing, sales calls, follow-ups, right? Sending emails. You're setting that time allotment so you don't spend too much time on it and you're not dithering, right? And you're not just kind of sitting there dragging your feet. So step number 3, lay out your process and execute it, which is 2 things here, is you're kind of stretching out all those steps. So you're specifying the sequence and the time allotment. Then you're kind of specifying what needs to be done for those specific things in step number 3. And then you're doing those things. Okay. So you're setting your conditions. That would be your environment. Then you're determining your process, which would be the steps. And then you're executing that process. So this is a bit of a more philosophical point, so please go ahead and read the article if you're interested, but I gave here an example, very quick one. If your tasks are laid out, A, B, C, D, and something happens where B needs to occur later, like after D, then just move it and get it done later. So don't get too caught up in the specific order of the tasks, right? If you need to do it later, just do it later. Step number 4. Perform daily progress checks and reflections. So this is important. You have to determine if the process is repeatable every day. If it's not repeatable every day, it's too hard. It's too complicated. If your process is not repeatable every day, it's too hard or too complicated. So scale back, make it a bit easier, make it a bit less complex. And then simultaneously or conversely, if the process you're just kind of breezing through it, no problem, then you have to increase the complexity or the difficulty. So you have to either add tasks or add complexity to the current tasks that you're currently undergoing. So this is how you're going to reflect. So you want to spend some time every day alone with yourself where you can kind of feel into the experience of that process, observe what arises. And then what you're doing here is, this is kind of where the self-love part comes in, where it's like, okay, so you've done 3 things, which is you've stopped the content so you can discover your voice, what it is that you want. You have to start thinking about things as you start to remove all of that kind of like energy that you're consuming and you have more time to free up. You're specifying the tasks and their time allotment. So you're like identifying different problems that need to be solved and how they need to be solved. You're describing the problems and the goals and you're laying out the sequence. Then you're kind of like specifying the sequence, like what you have to do for every step, how much time you have to spend, and then you're doing those things. And then you're reflecting on the day and you're thinking, okay, how did that day go? Did it go well? Did it not go well? Why didn't it go well? Well, it was too long. It was too complicated. And I didn't have time for other things. Well, scale back, right? Start using different timers. Maybe remove some tasks that are not necessary. So you're making modifications and you're reflecting. Now, how do you sustain this over time? Because you're like, oh man, that was a drag. It's like I felt like I was productive, but I don't know if I could sustain this. Like it didn't feel good. It didn't feel like I was generating the emotions, the positive emotions, the chemicals that are gonna allow me to continue that process. Because remember, like if you look at a lot of high performers in general, like on the online space in general, they're not like depressed people. They're not like depressed, despairing people. So what that means is like their brains are able to like generate positive emotions and chemicals as they pursue that process. And it is true that progress does produce that positive emotion, but you also want to be able to self-generate it and not just rely on some kind of like outcome that you're going to achieve. Because it's very often the case that you're going to have to do the same thing over and over and over again and not see any results for a long period of time until there finally is a payoff. So you have to find a way to keep yourself on the path, on the straight and narrow path. So, how? You have to send love and acceptance to whatever happens internally. I want you to pay attention here because this is a very important point. This is not some trivial point. Like, oh, send love. Well, how's your life going? You know what I mean? You have to ask yourself, are you exactly where you want to be? Or are you the person that you want? And is the life that you're currently living the life that you would want to live on repeat for the next 40 years of your life? Either the state of your relationships, the state of your finances, the state of your character, the state of your body. Is it exactly where you want it to be? If it isn't, this part is important, right? Because you're going to have feelings of annoyance, anger, sadness, desperation, anxiety, frustration. These things are going to emerge, right? So, in order for you not to succumb to those feelings and then to go back into the hole, right? Back into that negative cycle of like being scattered, consuming a bunch of content, not knowing why you're lost, and then trying to look for answers. And now you're back into the whole loop. You're back into the whole loop. You want to avoid that. So the only way to do that is to tell yourself really and truly, I don't want to touch the mic, that there's no way to be consistent in any process in life. You want to tell yourself really and truly that you appreciate yourself, that you have compassion for yourself, that you're giving yourself credit, and that you love yourself. Okay? So whatever happens, you got your own back. Right? This is something that I tell myself. Sometimes when I feel like I'm isolated, I'm alone, I feel like distant from God, God's presence doesn't seem to be known to me. I don't really want to talk to anybody as far as like friends or family. I'm like, okay, bro, I got you. Like I tell myself, I talk to myself. I'm like, I got you. We're here. We're together. We're in this together. Right? It's almost like I'm speaking to my own heart. Right? It's like you got the adult part of you, and then you got like the inner child, or the part of you that is wants the things that it just wants. Right? Which means it just wants to be satisfied. It just wants to be gratified. Hence why people engage in vices, because there's a part of them that feels kind of like missing or empty. So you want to be able to fill that part with your own attention, right? With your own love, with your own affection, with your own compassion. You can fill that part if you do it properly. So there's no way to be consistent in any process in life where failure is an absolute certainty, because it is in anything that you do, if you cannot regard yourself with compassion and appreciation and encouragement, right? So if you cannot regard yourself with compassion, appreciation, and encouragement, sustainable progress is not going to be possible. And for you to just stick to the process from now until the end of time, the end of your time, it's not going to be possible, right? So, but you cannot do that self-love thing in a vacuum. This is where things come together. You can't do this whole self-love thing that I just talked about just now in a vacuum, which means that you have to simultaneously try to become better. So remember, if you do that whole self-love thing, but you're not actually working towards anything, you're not actually showing yourself that you care about yourself, really, right? Like, oh, self-love, eat a pizza, porn, jerk off, whatever, right? Videos all day, Netflix, eating popcorn, staying up late, alcohol, self-love, self-love. You're not loving yourself with your actions. You're showing yourself that you don't love yourself, that you don't respect yourself, that you don't appreciate yourself, that you don't regard yourself as somebody that's like worthy to take care of. You're showing yourself through your actions. So you got to show yourself that through the process and understand that you're going to go through like hard times. You're going to feel like unsatisfied in many ways, and you're going to want to like go back to that old life, or you're going to want to go back to, vices or things that are not helpful, just because you want to soothe yourself. You want to like self-soothe, but you have to learn how to like self-parent, because that self-parenting is the self-soothing. So remember, you can't just perform like a champion and then do everything perfectly all the time, because you're going to start to feel all these things, like I mentioned, the annoyance, the anger, the sadness, desperation, and without regarding yourself positively, then you're going to fall off. And then conversely, if you're just showing love without the process, then you're not going anywhere. So you're marrying the two things. You're like, okay, I'm doing all this stuff. Now I'm feeling all these emotions. Okay, self-love. You're respecting yourself. You're like, I'm proud of you, right? You did something right today. You did one thing right today. One thing. You made one change and you did it right. Give yourself props for that. Give yourself credit for that. Right? So I'm going to close off with something that I wrote in the article, and then I'll end the video because I think it's been going on for quite a long time. So on your journey, you will certainly fail. And the last thing you need when that happens is for your own judgment to keep you down. Therefore, you must speak to yourself in the way that you would speak to your own son or daughter, with encouragement, affirmation of effort, gentle reminders, and appropriate guidance. Firm, but not harsh. So fail often without constantly being disappointed in yourself or being judgmental about your faults and deficiencies, because we all have them. Remember, self-love is not just spiritual, it is functional. It actually helps you in the doing of life, which is reflected in your improved state of being. You love yourself not only through your words, but through your efforts to make life better. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed that video. You got a lot of value from this video, and you execute and you read that article if you're a reader, because I think it's well written. But you tell me, you tell me if it's well written. So if you like the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. I read all the comments. I respond to the comments. If you want me to cover something, this has happened recently. I make videos about what you comment because the channel is still small. So, and that's it. Until next time, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you soon.